On the 20th of May this year, India lost a colossus in the world of science. Dr. Jayant Narlikar was not only a renowned cosmologist who walked a path very different from the mainstream ideas of cosmology, but he was also a prolific writer and a science communicator. Dr. Narlikar wrote science fiction stories and novels in both Marathi and English. Some of his stories are The Return of Vaman, Dhoomketu, It Happened Tomorrow, and Tales of the Future. Now we have taken the story The Ice Age Cometh and we have given it a visual rendering with some help from AI. The Ice Age Cometh begins one fine morning in Bombay when
Rajiv and his children woke up to find the city covered in snow. In the shivering cold, Rajiv and his two children, Pramod and Kavitha, went up on the terrace to find snow on the treetops, rooftops, and on railway tracks. The snowfall had come as a climax to the change of weather through the week. Normally, Bombayites complain of a cold wave when the mercury dips to 15 degrees centigrade. On the previous day, it had dipped to 5 degrees, and at night, the mercury touched the zero mark. The news on radio and television kept giving updates of the situation in different parts of the country. From western Rajasthan to the Bay of Bengal, from Himalayas to Sahyadri Range, the country was reeling under snowfall. The children cuddled up in front of the television with cups of hot chocolate. There was talk of shifting the capital from New Delhi to Bombay. Rajiv was reminded of a conversation he had 5 years ago at a party hosted by the Indian ambassador in Washington. There he had met Professor Vasant, who had come on a lecture tour of USA. Alarmed by the news of frequent volcanic eruptions, Dr. Chitnis had predicted that within 10 years there will be snowfall in Bombay. In fact, Rajiv had laid a bet with Chitnis that would never be. Today, Rajiv, a journalist by profession, took out the visiting card of Vasant Chitnis and made an appointment with him. He had lost his bet. But he must meet this maverick scientist. The journey from Dadar to South Bombay was far from smooth. Drivers in Bombay were not used to driving on snow. Cars were skidding left and right. Finally, Rajiv reached his destination.
Come in, Mr. Journalist. You are late by an hour. Did you find another victim to interview on the way?
I apologize, Professor Chitnis. I would perhaps have arrived sooner if I had walked instead of driving through this chaotic city. But first, my congratulations, Professor. You sure hit the bull's eye with that prediction of yours. But we journalists are inquisitive, if nothing else. Please enlighten me how you made the prediction and why you said that publicizing it will not be of any use.
Your questions will find answers in this pile of papers. When you look at our terra firma, you find that land occupies only about 1/3 of the total area. The rest is all water, seas and oceans. The oceans play an important role in controlling our climate. The hot air above them rises, mixes with the Earth's atmosphere and spreads around before coming down.
This is what is textbook material in schools.
But we always take it for granted that the oceans are warm and it will remain so. To what extent is this correct? A few years ago, I measured the temperatures of the sea down to great depths and was shocked at what I found. The sea water is warm in the upper layers and can be quite cold down to the freezing levels deeper down. What came as a shock to me was the realization that the upper warm layers on which we rely so much for our climate are quite thin, and over years they are getting thinner.
But what about the sun? Does it not provide heat to the oceans?
As a direct supplier of heat, the sun is very inefficient. There is bright sunlight on the poles in summer, but how much ice does it melt? Rather, the ice reflects the sunlight, thereby not allowing it to carry its heat in. But indirectly, the sunlight can and does prove more effective. I will show you an experiment if you step in my lab. I am gradually cooling the air in this vessel. It has some water vapor. If I perform my operations carefully, the temperature should fall below zero without the vapor solidifying into ice. Look. Light is passing through the air. It is transparent to the light. But now let me lower the temperature further. Look. When the temperature falls below 40 degrees, the vapor solidifies into tiny icicles. These ice particles are scattering light. This diamond dust hanging in the air is the key to the coming of Ice Age. Suppose the oceans are cooling and are not able to supply adequate heat to the atmosphere. Then diamond dust will form not just at the poles, but at lower latitudes too. And what would the diamond dust do? It will scatter the sunlight and prevent it from reaching the Earth's surface.
Soon Vasant Chitnis became a celebrity. The fact that he had scientifically predicted the catastrophic change in the climate earned him respect from the masses and credibility among his scientific peers. As a result, his prognostications about the future began to be taken seriously. In April, the spring arrived with a slight rise in temperature. The summer everywhere in the northern hemisphere was warm and sunny. Even the winter down south was nowhere as bitter as that in the north had been. So the weatherman, as well as the others, began to predict that the thaw had set in. The Wimbledon matches took place as usual. Although the players had to wear warm pullovers, everybody was happy that it did not rain. Australia recaptured the Ashes, and for once nobody could blame the weather. The US Open golf tournament was played out in the unprecedented balmy weather. Down in the tropics, the excess of heat was absent, but the monsoon came to the Indian subcontinent promptly and in adequate measure. At a press conference attended by international reporters, Vasant warned against any complacency.
There may be some thaw in the summer, but don't take it as the end of Ice Age. A much colder winter will follow. There is a way out to prevent it, which we can try out before it is too late. It is still possible to reverse the trend, but it will cost a lot of money. Spend it.
One day, Vasant dropped into Rajiv's office.
Here, look at this telex. As directed by you, we have measured the ice cap in the Antarctica. We confirm that it has expanded and the water temperature has dropped by 2 degrees compared to what it was a year ago.
You mean that we are in for a winter more severe than what we had last year?
Yes, Rajiv. But who cares? We are going to be frozen to death anyway.
Come on, Vasant. Is there no way out of this ice spiral?
Take my friendly advice. Go as close to the equator as you possibly can. I am buying a ticket to Bandung.
On 2nd November, the people of Bombay saw a remarkable sight. Overhead were flying thousands and thousands of birds, all going in disciplined formations that air squadrons would be proud of. Ornithologists came out to watch and wonder that many of these birds had not flown this way before. Soon the crows and sparrows and pigeons of Bombay joined them. The discovery was made by all the geostationary satellites 2 days later. On 4th November came the warning. Atmospheric changes are taking place rapidly and heavy snowfalls are expected. This advanced warning could not have come but for our advanced technology, the meteorologists proudly announced. The birds by then had reached the safe haven of the equator. Unable to match their discipline, the humans panicked. The technologically advanced countries like Japan and Canada, the USA and the Europe were complacent that having survived the previous winter, they would be able to face any cold front. They were not prepared to find their big cities buried in the 5-meter deep snow. In the ensuing chaos, only the fortunate few who ran to the nuclear war shelters survived. In the traditionally warmer countries, the cold wave was less severe, but it extracted as much a toll from their less prepared populations.
All rivers in North India are frozen.
The British government has announced the completion of its transfer program of the surviving 40% of its population to Kenya. The program took 2 months to complete.
Moscow ANDST. Petersburg HAVEBEN evacuated.
Vasant had settled in Bandung and Rajiv had shifted to Madras with his family. One day he got a call from Richard Holmes, a member of the US Energy Board. He had been introduced to Richard at that party in Washington 5 years back. Richard had now shifted to Miami and he wanted to get in touch with Vasant Chitnis. So he came to Madras, and from Madras, Rajiv and Richard headed for Bandung. At his home in Bandung, Vasant took out a typescript from his desk. It was labeled Project Invasion of Indra.
We are ready.
Then fire.
Vasant was never one to wait for an astrologically auspicious moment for beginning any project. The invasion of Indra had begun. The Vikram Sarabhai Space Center had previously launched rockets to get information about the atmosphere. Now this rocket was going to control it. And the other rockets were being launched all along the equatorial belt, like from Sriharikota, Sri Lanka, Sumatra, Kenya, Guatemala. What was the invasion about? It carried the ambitious plan of bombarding the atmosphere with tiny metallic particles. These particles would absorb the sun's heat and convey to the earth down below. This was Vasant's plan. He expected that by now the ejector volcano that had settled in the atmosphere and reflected back the sun's rays away from the earth would have percolated down. The hope was that the newly injected metallic particles would undo the damage done by them. But this was not going to be enough. The diamond dust in the atmosphere had to be reduced immediately. This could be achieved only through explosive heating of the atmosphere. To achieve this, Vasant had stipulated the use of weapon technology harnessed for constructive use rather than destructive. Driven to the point of extinction, all countries came forward in the spirit of cooperation.
The media held Dr. Vasant Chitnis as the savior of human civilization. But the Ice Age had taken a heavy toll on the human population and the population was reduced to half. The invasion of Indra had also taken a heavy role on the energy resources of all the nations. So they will have to make up for it now. And on top of that, the snow would begin to melt and it would cause heavy floods everywhere. Vasant felt drops of perspiration gathering on his brow. For the first time in 2 years, he perspired. Pop's Team Talk Show is full of surprises. Keep watching.